Alright boys, welcome back to episode number 6 of the Road to Pro. So we're going to do something a little bit different today. I really wanted to do like a little Q&A, so I put a Q&A box up on my Instagram. So I'm going to I might do this like on a regular occurrence every now and again. I'm going to call it like Q&A with Big J. That's a nickname my brother gave me, so probably going to title it that. So I've got like 12 questions here that people threw over on Instagram. I appreciate everybody that sent them over, and I'm going to answer them as best I can. We've got a couple of serious ones, a couple of funny ones. I'll give everybody a shout out who dropped me a message on the non-anonymous side of it. So first one is Josh, one of my clients. He asked, what is the impact of good habits? So simple answer, progress. Good habits, whether it's in a sport that you do like bodybuilding or good habits that you have outside of it, the result and the impact of good habits is ultimately just going to be progress. Progress in career, in your hobby, in your life, relationships. I think if you've got some good habits, it spreads into other areas, and it's a big thing why I tell people when it comes to like bodybuilding, being coached, without plugging it, just as a general thing, I think if you've got good habits set, like getting up at the set time every day, going to bed at a set time every day, eating your meals, drinking your fluids, giving yourself so much time to yourself, like 2 hours in the gym, 1 hour in the gym, it just makes you a better person, performance-wise, to be around. So for me, impact of good habits is pretty self-explanatory. It's progression, and it's being the best version of yourself. So this one comes from Billy Stella. Billy's my boy, another engineered sponsored athlete. So this one, I had to have a look at it before and have a think. So 48 hours before the world ends, how are you spending it? And I'm the only person that knows. These questions, whenever they get asked on other podcasts, like Fuwa gets this question quite a lot. I think whatever you answer is basically what you're putting off doing, or what you should be doing but you're not, or what you want to do but something's not allowing you to do it. So people always say, I would fly to this country because I've always wanted to visit it, or I would do this experience, like I would drive a Formula 1 car, or drive a fast car on a racetrack, or I'd learn to fly a plane. It's like, I always find the answers are just what you should or want to be doing, but something isn't allowing you to do that, whether it's commitment to something, not enough time, whatever it might be. So another thing with these type of questions is, no matter what you answer it, you're going to be losing out on something else that you probably want to do. So like for me, and a lot of people's obvious answer would be travel somewhere. But when you travel somewhere, you're going to be losing out on flight time that you have in that 48-hour window. So honestly, for me, it wouldn't involve the gym, surprisingly. I do that enough as it is. It's going to be travel somewhere that I really want to go, spend it with people that I want to be with. Definitely going to involve some kind of food. But honestly, I couldn't say specifically like 48 hours before the world ends, what am I doing? It would just be going somewhere to experience it, the culture, the food, the sights. That would be it really. That's a really deep question. I wouldn't really know how to answer it. People probably think my answer would be like, yeah, I'd go and train legs and then I'd eat this and I'd do that. It's like, no, not really. I'd probably do a load of blow and just go fly somewhere and find out what happens. It would definitely as well involve driving something very fast, driving a car anything you do. I mean, people are different. It's probably going to be relatively extreme, isn't it? I mean, I do enjoy the simple things, but kind of do those every day. So it would be spending time with people doing some probably pretty extreme stuff. I know everyone's answer will be different though. So Ethan, another one of my clients, asks, what is the most underrated supplement? Now, the way I read this is, if something is underrated, it's probably not being used enough, or if it is, it's probably not understood enough why people should be using it, if that makes sense. So for me, I think the most, as well, I think underrated, you probably get multiple things out of it as well. So for me personally, like the most underrated supplement, I think, because people use it every day, or should be using it every day, it's super cheap and it doesn't give you anything kind of instant. It's not like drinking a caffeinated drink. I think creatine, because creatine gives us, we know the studies showing that it gives us cognitive enhancement, strength, endurance. It's also a natural GDA. It's super cheap. Everyone can afford it. Naturals can use it as well. I just think there's not really an upper limit to how much you can use. And I think for how much you pay, how much you use, and the payback you get from that as an athlete, I think it's fantastic. So for me, I think the most underrated supplement is creatine. I couldn't really think of another one. Maybe if you're looking from a health standpoint, maybe really high strength fish oils, because I think when people think about supplements, they want something like there and then. They want like the best pre-workout because they want to feel it, but it's not always the best, or at least I don't think it is anyway. So next one, Harry. Harry's a big advocate of watching my YouTube, so I appreciate you, mate. He said, at what point do you think an athlete who has done a couple of shows needs a coach? So the way that I would break this down is, how well did you do at your shows? If you are, I'm assuming at this point we're self-coached. So how well did you do? Did you achieve what you wanted to achieve? Now that doesn't have to be a placing. That could be a look. That could also be, how did the prep go in terms of execution? Were you stressed? Did you have to play catch up at the end? Was there a lot of second guessing? You know, I think if all of those things, all of those boxes are not being ticked, I think at that point you should potentially look at getting a coach. So if you found that you weren't happy with the look, or you weren't happy with your placing, or the prep was very stressful trying to manage it yourself, or you felt like you were doing a lot of second guessing, or throughout the day when you made a decision you were maybe sat there thinking about it too much, or you were listening to too many people's voices, watching too much on YouTube, getting a coach will remove all of that for you, because then you will just listen to that one person, trust in that one person, and they will give you the guidance and also remove that stress. I think as well, the flip side of that, I think if you did achieve what you wanted to achieve, you were happy with the look, the prep was pretty straightforward, but you feel like you want to learn more about other people's processes, other people's ideas, or you're at a kind of maybe a point where you want to take yourself to the next level. So you look at yourself and you think, my knowledge here is pretty limited. I think I want to now break through to the next level. Then I think at that point as well, a coach is a really good idea. But ultimately, like, nobody needs a coach. I think people believe that to compete you need a coach, and you don't need a coach, because there's a lot of good athletes in the UK in the amateur league that don't have a coach and they actually do really, really well. But I will argue they will probably have a small circle that they probably lean on, and they probably do pass ideas around. So they kind of have a little bit of a coach, or a little bit of group of coaches that will have some kind of input there. So that would be my answer to that. But just make sure when you do pick a coach that you pick the coach that suits you, one that leads from the front, and one that can fill the gaps that maybe you can't yourself. So next question is from Lizzie. How to deal with gaining after a cut? Always end up cutting again to be lean. So this is a really good question. So I would probably open this, Lizzie, with saying that you need to understand the expectations of what is to come following a diet or a prep. So with my guys, with myself, with anybody that I'm in conversation with, you need to understand the mechanisms and what is to come following a diet. We know you are going to be hungry. Now that hunger is driven by signaling in the brain, chemical signaling in the brain. You're going to be hungry, and that is a given. If you diet to a point, like really diet, you don't just take off a couple of pounds. I mean, you push yourself to the point where you have dropped a decent amount of weight, especially in a prep. So you are going to be hungry. Hunger signaling is going to be high. That's going to be driven by chemicals in your brain that are basically telling your body that we're dying or we're starving. We need to put energy on us. So stored body fat is stored energy. So when you don't have food coming in through your digestive system, your body has stored energy that it can utilize to keep it alive for a couple of weeks, couple of months after it can't get anything through the digestive system. So set your expectations up. Understand you are going to be hungry, and that will, honestly, that will not stop for weeks if you diet correctly. So no matter how much food you eat, no matter how much you put your baseline food up by, no matter how much you binge, no matter how many sweet treats you give yourself, you are going to be hungry. Now, if you understand those expectations and you manage them, and you know the road ahead will be relatively long, and you've got the discipline there to get through that process, then for me, it's going to be setting yourself mini goals in the gym. Try not to allow your performance be visual based at this point. So try not to let your feedback, your positive feedback, be visual, because you are going to get softer. You need to get softer to grow, to get healthy. You can't be like super lean, especially if your hunger signaling's all over. So set yourself mini goals, mini targets in the gym. You want your rate of gain to be nice and slow. For a female, we need to understand that rate of gain needs to be lower than a guy, because I don't coach females. I'm not massively au fait on female bodybuilding, female bodies, female dieting, but a calorie to a female and a calorie to a guy is two very different things. Unfortunately, I feel like guys can get away with a lot more. Females need to be a little bit more reserved. So you need to ensure that your rate of gain is steady. Do allow some balance, some flexibility. And by that, I don't mean like just go out and smash a load of food at the weekend. If you have the discipline to add to your baseline food, the odd thing here and there to curb cravings, that can really help drive you forward. So if you can add into your diet 10 grams of dark chocolate, a little bit of jam, whatever it is in the diet that you were craving, that can be a big help. So coaches I work with in the past have always asked me, when it gets to the last show, going into the post-show period, what foods have you been craving? What can we put on your plan that can help you get through, the post-show period a little bit easier? I do think that at this point, higher veg intake is going to be your friend. Now, before a show or during a diet, I would be mindful of how much veg I'm eating. After a show, I'd still be mindful, but I'd be allowing for a lot more and a lot more variety as well. I wouldn't be too concerned about eating tomatoes and carrots and things that have got a little bit higher carb in them, because you're not going to put on a ton of weight by eating a few more cherry tomatoes, but it is going to help satiate you for longer. I do think as well, increase your protein. Protein is very satiating. It does fill you up. It takes your body a bit longer to break it down. So higher protein, more veg is definitely going to help. But also try and keep yourself busy. I think a lot of people after a diet are so locked in for the diet, they might get to the end of it and feel a bit like, well, I've got kind of nothing to do now. That goal's gone missing. So in line with setting yourself more goals, keep yourself busy, because an occupied mind won't lead you into the kitchen. Fluid intake, also sugar-free drinks, I think at this point again can come in clutch. They can really help. But all of this stuff, you just have to be mindful that it isn't upsetting your digestive system. If it is, then we need to, pull it down, observe why it's affecting your digestive system. But I think a big one here to round it up basically is manage your expectations, understand that you are going to be hungry, increase veg, increase protein, allow for some flexibility within the baseline diet, allow yourself maybe one off-plan meal a week that's calculated, increase your fluid, allow for sugar-free drinks, set goals, keep yourself busy. But again, not to plug coaching, because I don't coach females. However, this is where accountability to a coach could come in very, very handy, because that person will, if you know you've got to check in with them at multiple points a week, you won't want to go into those check-ins knowing that you've eaten off plan. You'll want to stick to it. And I think the last one as well, for me, it's enjoyable knowing I'm doing what a lot of people can't. So I get satisfaction out of knowing that there's people out there that at this point would crumble. At this point, they would be in the cupboard, they'd be down the shop, they'd be secret eating. And don't get me wrong, I've been there. Like following diets when I very first started getting in the gym at like 16, 17. But as you mature and as you go through this, you learn how to handle it. But also you learn that not everybody is able to do this. It's very, very difficult. But I get satisfaction out of that. And I know that by adhering to this part of the plan, it's going to set me up in the long run to be a better athlete. And from my last prep to this one, or from my last prep to now, and obviously with the prep in the middle that I didn't do, coming out of both of those preps, they were relatively controlled. They weren't the best, don't get me wrong. Every time I do it, I aim to be a little bit better. But you kind of learn that food's always going to be there. It's not going to run away. And there's a satisfaction knowing that you went to bed when you get up the next day and you're like, I wanted to eat off plan, but I didn't. And that's just how my brain works. So I hope that helped. Again, I'm not totally au fait with female dieting, but that would be my approach for myself and my clients, and if I was to give anybody advice. So next up, Carlton. Big fan of Carlton, my G. He asked, best coach I've ever had and why? So I think to answer this, like initially I would say every coach I've worked with has played a pivotal role in my journey. So Owen was the first coach I ever had, introduced me to the way of coaching, got me on stage for the first time. Anth came in as my second coach. He taught me a lot to do with high intensity interval training, Dorian Yates style, how to train to failure. And then after Anth, I went to Cuba. Cuba played a massive role in maturing me as an athlete, showing me what it is to act like a pro 24/7. If I want to be a pro, you got to act like a pro. He instilled in me the habits of routine, adherence to plan, how to be a good coach, how to conduct yourself online, things of that nature. Then obviously Cuba, from Cuba to Jake. Jake then took me from an amateur athlete that had only ever won a regional, never won an overall, never been in a top 3 or in an overall of a pro qualifier. He took me from zero to hero. He took me through 2 seasons where I came from kind of bottom of the amateur pack right the way through to the top, and kind of taught me the ways of how to build a very strong coach-client relationship. So with that being said, I think ultimately the obvious answer would be Jake. If we're going to go for results, I think Cuba played a pivotal role, as did Anth, as did Owen, but Jake obviously took me to being, kind of a nobody in the amateurs to being a somebody. I think that would be the why, yeah. So I would probably say Jake. Next up, so these next 2 questions are kind of similar, but a little bit different, but I'm gonna do them both separately. So Callum asks, if it wasn't bodybuilding, what sport or what type of training would I be doing? Oh, ask this question, man. If not bodybuilding, what sport? I used to play rugby, still a big fan. I guess bodybuilding, weightlifting and rugby all kind of sit under the same thing, so maybe rugby. I would like to think though I might have moved into some kind of fighting. I like the idea of boxing. I like the idea of how physically fit you have to be for a boxer, and I think the fighting world, there's a lot of similarities in terms of like the disciplines, the habits and the nature of the athletes. It's very similar but obviously very different. So I think maybe rugby, but I'm not a team. Not that I'm not a team player, but I think you see a lot of really good players on a team work their arse off and they don't get a result because some people weren't pulling their weight, which is kind of why I moved into bodybuilding, because you only have to rely on your own efforts. So I think probably a fighting sport, an individual sport like fighting, probably boxing, because I don't want to grapple in the octagon, to be honest. So Connor, I believe it's Connor. I want to say Connor. Sorry if I got your name wrong, but what would you be or do if you weren't a bodybuilder? What would I be? or what would I do? Well, probably throw myself into another sport, like I just said in the other one, probably into a fighting sport. I'm very progress and goal orientated, but I was saying this to G maybe a couple of weeks after we met. I think if I could go back in time, well, I wouldn't because I'm happy where I am now, but in another world, I was actually due to go into the Air Force or into the Armed Forces. So I love watching on YouTube, kind of like Armed Forces videos, like tactical training videos. So there's a guy called DJ Shipley, and he has a YouTube that talks about like the disciplines of the military and training and how they prepared for what they had to do in the secret services and stuff. So I think I would have fancied myself probably in a military service, if I'm being honest. I think the routines and the discipline that requires probably would have been where I would have ended at 17, 18 if I hadn't ended up coming this way. So these now are anonymous. Actually, I tell you what, I'll answer James's question because it's not anonymous because he doesn't hide behind a screen. So James Murphy, my G, who is smashing his season this year in super heavyweights. How do you balance training intensity versus frequency? Good question. I don't, because I'm a knob. I think if you train intense, ultimately your frequency is going to have to be aligned with that. I don't want to say brought down. I think your volume will have to be dependent on your intensity. Like if you can take a set of leg press or hack squat to true failure, I don't think you need 2 sets. Obviously not every time, but for myself as an example, at the moment, because of my recovery demands aren't brilliant. I think people think when you're in the off season and you're, super saturated with supplementation, with food, you're super strong, you're heavy, like your recovery's sick. It's not brilliant. And because I have learned how to take a set to true failure, my leg press and my hack squats are currently at 1 set. That's all I need. If I did 2, I'd be even more mashed up than I am right now. So I think understanding where you are in a phase. So if you're deep in an off season, deep in a prep, in those extremes, I think your frequency probably has to be managed alongside your training intensity. Again, if you're deep in an extreme of a prep, your intensity does have to be pulled back, otherwise you aren't going to be able to fill up. You're going to bring a watery look. You're going to be too fatigued to pull that round. So I've answered that. I kind of feel like I've just skirted around it, but in terms of balancing intensity and frequency, I think if you are training intense, your frequency doesn't really need to be managed all that much. It's more the volume of each session, but it would depend as well on the level of athlete and how advanced they are. Because ultimately, if you train like a wet lettuce, you can do 4 sets of 10 exercises a session twice a week, every body part, because you're not putting that recovery demand on your body. So these ones now are anonymous. So I got 4 anonymous questions. So this one I wasn't too sure on what it meant or how to answer it, but I'll give it a good go. So how has your intimate circle for training changed, and how has it changed you personally? So the way that I read this is, how has my close circle for training changed, and how has it changed me personally? My intimate circle, obviously from last season to this season, is totally different. Obviously different coach. I'm a solo individual anyway, but I've got a different team around me now. I've grown a lot tight with Engineered, all the boys on there. So I think my intimate circle for training has changed a lot. And it's changed me personally. I think it's just made me more resilient. And I've got a lot more self-belief. That is a big one. I think, I don't know how I could word this. People want to see you do well, but they don't want to see you do better than them. And my intimate circle now couldn't be any further from that. They support me all the way, and they want to see me do well. They don't just say they want to see me do well, they actually believe it. So I'll leave that one at that. What is the difference between being ready for this prep versus how you were stopping at the last one? That's a good question. So one of the big reasons why I stopped my last prep was my body and my mind were just tired. And I didn't know that, but it was giving me the feedback to tell me that it was. So I think when you do a prep, I think you do need to have a level of being able to push through. And I think you need to have a level of being very strong-minded that when things do arise, you can jump over them or visit them later. But I think if you do that for 2 consecutive seasons and then you go into a 3rd consecutive season doing it again, those things at some point have to come out. Like it's like shaking a bottle of Coca-Cola or whatever. Like if you shake up a bottle of Coca-Cola, they don't expect the lid not to blow off at some point. So I think my body just needed a rest. I'd literally been monk mode for 7 years. I'd not been on holiday for 7 years. I went to America in 2022. Wasn't a holiday. It was a bodybuilding trip. So it's a little bit different. I've not been on a holiday since 2018. I needed some time away. I'd literally been living the lifestyle for 8 years solid. So I needed the rest. Like I said, environment wasn't right. Stuff went on at the start of the year. Threw me sideways. I was like, right, doesn't matter, I'll crack on. And like I said, you can't just keep cracking on. So I needed to find some space for myself. I needed to be selfish, and like I said, when I don't know if anybody follows me on Instagram, when I put the post out, at this point I only have one more hurdle to climb, or one more hurdle to jump over, should I say. Why would I put myself through 20 to 25 weeks of a prep when mind and body isn't where I need it to be at 100% or close to, and then get on stage due to not allowing me to put my ego to one side? You know, just getting on stage because I said I was going to. To me, that seems like a silly idea. If I'm not feeling it, my body's not responding, and I know that formula is not going to put me on stage at 100%. Why? You know, I spoke to my sponsors. You know, first thing I did was I messaged Riz, spoke to Hilly, my coach, straight away. Two very important people in that prep for me, and they both said the same thing. They both said, we agree with what you're saying. You need to back it off. You need to do what's right for you and come back when the time's right. And if my sponsor's saying that, it was also one of my best friends, and my coach is also saying that, probably going to listen to them. So I think that is the biggest thing. I needed some rest, come back with a fresh head, with a fresh environment. And now going to a few shows this year, seeing all the boys do well during this season, watching their preps on YouTube. As you can tell, I've now put myself out there more. I'm ready. So me at the start of the year, and me now going into the next season, rested, recovered, the fire's lit, lost myself for a little bit, still did what I needed to do, but I lost myself and now I'm back. So to answer your question, I'm back. So that's that one. Is there anything you think will make this prep different, good or bad? Environment. Just environment. Environment, and that doesn't have to be people, that can be your own head. I think the people around me, I didn't do my last prep unengineered. I wasn't with the team. I was with a different sponsor. So now I'm with Engineered. I've created some great friendships and relationships within that team who all support each other 100%. Obviously, new coach, new methodologies where I need it. For me, my body is very hard to get right at the last minute. I've got body parts that do what they want to do at the last point that need to be managed very closely. And there's certain methodologies, there's certain ways of working that some people might not be comfortable with, and that is totally fine. But I needed to move to some people that are. And that's what that last little bit, that little peaking bit, that little sort of push and pull at the end is what I was missing, and that's where Hilly will step up. I've seen him do it so many times. I was literally at the PCA Hall last weekend with him talking about him peaking current clients and what he was doing, and the way he was talking, the confidence he had, the level of knowledge, I was just like, this guy is mad, mad in a good way. So I think yeah, environment, the people who are around me. I've got G now. Like, G backs me 110%. She backs me more than I back myself, and I've got that confidence now in myself and in my physique. That will make it different 100%. I don't think there's anything bad, to be honest. I mean, I've just bought a house, so I've got that to do at the start of next year, which is a good thing, but also I need to move, so there will be all that to come. But again, that's another reason why prep had to be paused this year, because of buying a house and sorting all that out. So yeah, all you need to know is that I am very, very excited for prep, and I think it's going to be a fun time, and it's going to be yeah, not going to make it easy for the lads, put it that way. And this is the last question. So this one I've left the best to last, because this one I really wanted to deep dive into. So with this one, I'm going to assume it's come from a female. I might be wrong. When I looked at my analytics on YouTube, I literally looked at my analytics this morning before I got this question. My viewer audience is 100% males. So anything I say on this channel, really, in my head, is I'm just talking to the boys, I'm talking to the bros. You know, I know I might get a few female watchers, I know G watches it, but when I talk, I'm talking about men, male categories, male bodybuilding. That's really, I don't know enough about females and that side of things. There's a lot of fantastic male coaches, but I don't really know enough. So the question is it fair to push the idea that you need years to earn a pro card when some achieve it in under a year, even months after pregnancy? So first thing I'm going to say is, I'm assuming this has come from my first video when I spoke about my journey. It might come from a different one, but I'm assuming that's where it's come from. First thing I want to say is, when I said what I said, it wasn't, I feel like it's been misinterpreted. Just because people can take years to achieve a pro card doesn't mean there aren't people that can't. We know in every walk of life there are outliers. There is outliers everywhere, but we can't use outliers as examples, because it's not the majority. I know one person, and that's who I believe asked this question, who did achieve her IFBB Pro card months after her pregnancy. And I congratulated her, back her, fantastic achievement. But that in itself is a one of one. Well, not a one of one, but it's not a common occurrence. And let's be honest, I have friends that have been to the Olympia this year, Naz, Yemi. There's also other athletes on that stage at a high level, Nick Walker, like a James Hollinshead. You can name tons of top level pros. There's people like Jack Eagles. You know, there's some amazing athletes out there who are now there, they're up there. But it didn't take them 1 year, one season. It took them 2, 3, 4 seasons to get it. So it's not that I'm saying that people can't. I'm just saying I more often than not have seen people take at least 1 to 2 seasons. Now, with that being said, that's not a limited mindset belief. That's not me sat here in a negative limited mindset saying you cannot earn your pro card in a season. 100% you can. But I think there has to be a level of realism to say that it might take you a few. It might take you more than a few, you know. And just because it might take you more than one, like myself, it doesn't mean that you aren't already looking or are a pro without the pro card. Like, I'll sit here and I will say I live this sport every single day, 365, like a professional, but I haven't got an IFBB pro card. That doesn't make me any more or any less of an athlete. I just haven't got the official title yet. And really, last season, you could have argued I could have got it. So I think when I said it in my video, it was also under the umbrella of, don't just think that the only goal from amateur to pro is a pro card, because it's not. What my argument was, or what my point was that along that amazing journey to that goal, you have so many other milestones that are great achievements. Like, don't just think because you've won your class that you're just going to turn pro, or the only goal after winning your class that's worthy of celebrating is turning pro, because it's not. My point was, and if it has come from that video, my point was winning a class, winning an overall, winning a class at a pro qualifier, making top 3, getting into an overall before you've even won your pro card, or even just improving your physique visually, improving your placings along the way. That's all that we can really focus on and celebrate until we get to the pro card. So no, I'm not saying that it is going to take everybody 2, 3, 4 seasons, but I'm also not saying that there aren't people who can do it in under a year. It's just how I see things. I will say this as well, because this is my channel and this is my belief, and this is not diminishing any class or any category, but in my opinion, I think if you want to turn professional in men's open or turn professional in fit model, because I'm going to use 2 extremes, you could use women's bodybuilding as well. We could say women's bodybuilding and fit model actually instead of men's bodybuilding. Let's use women's bodybuilding and fit model. In my opinion, I think it will take you longer to turn professional in the women's bodybuilding than it will in the fit model. But does that mean that somebody in women's bodybuilding couldn't win it in a year? No. But does that mean that somebody in fit model couldn't win it it could take them 3 or 4 years? Can you see what I'm trying to say? It's person dependent. It's not to say that you can't do it or you can do it. It was just a broad statement. So yeah, I hope I've answered that one. But anyway, guys, that's all of my questions. Some of them I did answer, some of them I kind of tapped around, some of them I maybe just didn't answer how people expected, but I hope you enjoyed. I probably will, like I say, keep on doing these. I'm going to title this one Q&A with Big J. That's what we're calling it, and we're going to make it a series. So next time we do it, let's get some funny ones in, because Billy's question was sick, but I just don't really know how to answer it. But yeah, again, thank you everybody for the likes, the comments, the subscribes, the shares. Like, it's going way better than what I expected. I really do appreciate it. And as well, I'm going to film this weekend, because this weekend I'm doing stuff that is a little bit more normal. Like, I've got a trip to Liverpool planned, so I really want to capture that and take you guys along for the ride. But for now, we'll wrap it there. See you in the next one.